Hello everyone, welcome to another Gathering Moss YouTube channel video. My name is Phil, and I am very grateful you stopped by again today. We've been completely overwhelmed by the response to our last video. The video we did about plants that I have in my collection because Miro made me buy them. It's just been amazing to us, the number of you that have stopped by to check out our video. And we hope you come back again today and check out another video. It's going to be completely different. We're going to do some plant tasks. I have several things in mind that need to get accomplished today. As all of you know, if you have plants in your collection, it's a never-ending process. It's day to day and it never ends. There's always something that needs to get accomplished. So I have several plant tasks today I want to get completed. We're going to work on some Hoyas, we're going to work on a philodendron, we're going to take a look at some of my plants here and the progress and different things, exciting things that are happening with my plants. And we're also going to discuss something that I hope gets some good controversy going in our comments feed. I'm going to talk about the 5 green rules, I call them the green rules, that I tend to either bend or totally break.
Heisenberg, you lying two-faced.
So when I started my plant journey about 1.5 years ago, I decided I was not going to follow anybody else's rules, and I was going to figure this out on my own and do what was best for me and my plants, and not care about what everyone else said needed to be done. And it's been fairly successful so far. I get a lot of compliments about my plants. I think you'll see it in the plants that I show you today. So once again, we're going to talk about the 5 green rules and the reasons that I have for breaking those rules. Or, at least bending those rules. So if you have a cup of coffee, grab it. And if you have a plant chore or two to do on your own, get on in and get those done while we work on our plants. So let's get to it. Okay, so here is a quick pan of our living room. Quite a few plants here. As you can see, a little bit of everything. Alocasias, anthuriums. We're about to get over to the anthurium shelf. These are Vitz Joe shelves from IKEA, and they are pretty full of anthuriums. Have a little bit of everything. One of the anthuriums I have here, this is my Bessie Af, and as you can tell, she is in flower, and I was just able to collect the pollen from her flower, and I'm really hoping that I can cross it with something else. So it was my first really good experience with collecting pollen from an anthurium. I've collected before, but I didn't get much, so this is my first one that I really got quite a bit of pollen from her, and she's one of my favorite plants. Once again, it's a Bessie Af, and it's kind of broken up because of the little bar here, but she is dark and she is beautiful, and I absolutely love her. And I'm happy to get pollen from her and see if we can either cross with herself or we can cross her with somebody else, like the papillamums that I have here. Another one that she won't be crossing with, this is my Anthurium pterodactyl. And he has, when I bought it from a shop in Lima, Ohio called Leaf and Lux. And when I purchased it, it already had berries growing on it, and they've expanded since. And I'm getting really excited because they've been expanding even more lately. So hopefully we get some ripe berries and some seeds. I have no idea what the plant would be because once again it was this way when I purchased it. So, but it'd be interesting to find out. But the exciting part is that it flowered again, and I was able to, I think, Still waiting, judgment's still out, but I think I was able to pollinate it with my luxurians, which she's flowered a couple times, and her leaves look pretty horrible at the moment, just because she's put so much stress on flowering that she hasn't paid attention much to her leaves. So I've really let her stress out because I wanted to collect pollen from her because it's a really beautiful plant. I actually got this one from Tropical Plants out of Ecuador, so it was an import, and actually was free. I purchased a Warrockianum, and she was one I won in a raffle that day. So really excited to have her in my collection, and really excited that she's put out these flowers and given me some pollen, and we'll see what happens with crossing her with a pterodactyl. I'm not sure. I know that there's some anthuriums that you can't cross with other anthuriums because of I don't know. There's some magic formula or something that works with Hoyas. So I mean, not with Hoyas, with anthuriums, but we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that maybe this caterpillar or this inflorescence will actually produce some berries and some seeds, and we'll see what comes of it. I flipped right by it, and I started to think about it after I filmed the last little segment, but I had to come back to what is my pride and joy, and this is Philodendron giganteum. I grew this from a one-leaf cutting, and to be honest, it was a very, 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 very big one-leaf cutting. I think actually it may have been this leaf, but she's grown, and she has grown, and she has grown, and this is her newest leaf, and she's just a stunner. People come over to the house sometimes to pick up plants from purges or whatever, or pick up some grow trunks, and she is the one that they're stunned by, just because she's absolutely huge. And I built a special grow trunk. We used to sell these, but I built a hard shell edition. These are made out of downspouts, and she's only now reaching the first one. And I've added an extension, but she puts out leaves very quickly, but she doesn't grow upwards really fast. So I can't imagine what this plant is going to be like when it reaches the top of this grow trunk, which stands about, I'm 5'10", so I'm guessing it's about 6 feet 6 inches tall. So she's going to be a magnificent specimen when she gets to be that tall. And she's just one of my favorites. When I first got it, I was really hesitant because I really didn't care for it. But when you look at the growth structure and just how beautiful the leaves come out, you can't help but be impressed by this plant. So she's one of my favorites. Another one that's in the corner that I've been growing for a long time, mostly because of Sydney Plant Guy, is my Philodendron Splendid. And she has grown completely up a 6 feet grow trunk. And now I need to figure out what I'm going to do next because she's growing out of the top. She's growing off the top. This is her newest leaf. It hasn't even hardened off yet. If I can actually work a camera. But you can just see how beautiful she is. My pride and joy, I've had this one probably the longest of my collection, probably almost a year and a half. And she's been a slow grower, especially when she first got started, but she's one of my favorite plants. And I've just enjoyed watching her grow, and she's stuck to the grow trunk. I don't have to do anything with it. She just winds her way up, and just an impressive specimen. And actually, if you look right in there, she's flowering. So I'm really excited to see that. It will be my first philodendron flower. So it's exciting times here at the Gathering Moss Homestead. Okay, just a couple things over here on our buffet in our dining room slash part of the living room. This is our Thanksgiving cactus, or I guess now they call them the holiday cactus. And I just love how this plant is sun stressed. This plant has tried to die so many times, but she just keeps surviving, and she hasn't learned yet when Thanksgiving is because she's flowering now. So I just love this plant and how sun stressed it has become, and just how much she's growing. When I first bought it, it was sold to me as a Christmas cactus, of course, but now I see that they're all called holiday cactuses to kind of get past all that. But I also have the true Christmas cactus. I have one over here that's a variegated Christmas cactus, but she doesn't grow much, so hoping for better things next Christmas, I guess. So yeah, so over here I try a lot of experimentation, and I get in a lot of trouble for it, but I have several orchids growing on grow trunks. This one over here is growing on one of our grow trunks, and these are just rescues from our local grocery store. Just plain old Jane orchids. I forget the name. It always slips my mind because I don't really have too many orchids, but you can just see that they're growing so well on the grow trunk, and they're in flower almost constantly, and they really put out some beautiful flowers. And right next to her here is one of my other favorite plants because of how unassuming it is. This is a variegated vanilla orchid, and you know, this is where we get our vanilla beans from, that makes our vanilla extract that you use in cooking. Here you can get these to flower and produce beans, but that's not what I have this for. I just like the look of it and how unassuming it is. It just kind of keeps growing. And the really neat thing about this one is, and I don't know if you can tell it in there, but this one does not extend down into the soil at the bottom in the pot. This is totally growing on the grow trunk. And she just keeps growing and producing these beautiful, beautiful leaves. And I'm just really impressed with this plant. I just love it. And we all need those few plants in our collection that just take nothing from us. They just do what they're supposed to do, and that's grow. And before we move on, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out this beauty. This is my variegated Philodendron giganteum, and this is the newest leaf. She's still really small, but I grew this from tissue culture, and she's produced bigger leaves every single time. She's on a grow trunk, and she's working on attaching, and someday I just cannot wait until she has leaves as big as the other one and variegated. So that's what I look forward to. So someday I'll be able to show those off on our YouTube channel. Okay, last little bit here before we get into our plant tasks. This is one of my grow tents. We have a dedicated room over our garage where I've got 2 grow tents and 2 of the mini covered greenhouses. And this is just one of them. A lot of propagating going on in here. And as you can tell, quite a bit of Hoyas. And just trying to grow them out and getting them ready to put in our store. We found a really successful having plants in our store, especially Hoya linearis. So one of the plants that we're going to work on today is linearis, and we're going to chop it up and work on propagating it. But this is what I really wanted to show you. This is taking over our grow tent, and I think I may need a larger tent before too long. This is our Musa banana, and she just keeps putting out bigger leaves, and she just never quits putting out new leaves. So I just don't know what I'm going to do with this thing in the future, because space is limited in the Gathering Moss grow tents, and I don't have space to dedicate to just one plant, so I don't know what's going to happen. But I also am not looking forward to taking her out and losing any of the beauty of these leaves, because there is not a spot of brown on these leaves. So, but this is our Musa banana, and she's growing like crazy. Going through one of my other greenhouse shelves and just looking at some plants that we have that we're growing out for one of our favorite local plant shops, and this one just caught my eye. This is Philodendron Painted Lady, one of my favorite philodendrons. I've grown them out before, and they have such beautiful leaves, and they're so easy to maintain, so easygoing. If you're ever in the market for a really easy philodendron that is just beautiful to behold, especially when they get older, Painted Lady is one to get. You don't hear about them very often anymore, but just a beautiful plant that just holds beautiful variegation, and just one to really look out for if you're in the market for a really pretty philodendron. Once again, Philodendron Painted Lady. Okay, the last stop on our tour. This is my IKEA Fabricore cabinet, and as you can tell, I've got quite a few Hoyas in here growing. I used to dedicate these to philodendrons, but Hoyas seem to really like being in a cabinet, and so they live here, and I share the space with just a couple of really special plants. And I have to tell you, the most special plant I have, and I'm just so excited to have it, is this guy. And he doesn't look like much now, but this is Philodendron Spiritus Sancti, and I just cannot wait to grow this guy out. This may be the only plant in my collection that no amount of money could buy, because I really want to grow one out. So once again, that's Philodendron Spiritus Sancti. Okay, this is my IKEA Millsbo cabinet, and it was a gift for my birthday from my wonderful wife, and I'm just very proud to have this cabinet. I love it to death, and so do my plants, and several of them in here are gaining popularity with me really quickly, just like this one. This is Hoya sulawesiana, and I just love these leaves. They're rigid and very bright and shiny, and just beautiful. And as she's just started to grow out, she was very slow to get started, but she's put out a lot of new growth in the last few weeks. So I'm excited to watch her grow. And then if we work our way down to the second shelf, there's quite a few working on growing out here, including my Hoya rotundiflora there in the back. Another one that's one of my favorites, just because, once again, it's a plant that you just can set and forget. Water it every once in a while, and it's more than happy to grow all you want it to grow. And down here we have a Clemenciorum that's taking its good old sweet time putting on another leaf. We have our Subquintiplinervus over here that is not doing a thing, but hopefully someday. And then down here we have quite a few of my favorites, including Caudata Sumatra, my Latifolia Pot of Gold, and probably my absolute favorite, This is Hoya latifolia Sarawak, I think they call it now. I'm not sure which version. I mean, I know there's like 4 or 5 different ones, the cream, and I don't know what all they are, but anyways, this plant, I had it before and it was growing out, and I sold it during a purge, and Crystal knew how much I really loved the plant, so she went out and bought it for me, and it came as a 1.5 leaf. The half leaf is still on here. You can see it down there. And that was an original leaf, but it's put on all these leaves since, and just growing out beautifully. I just love the look of the leaves and the size of the leaves, and it's growing up one of my really, really poor excuses for trellises, but it absolutely loves it, and I'm just so happy to have this plant in my collection. It's another one that just is, to me anyways, is set and forget. I just water it occasionally and she just keeps putting out new leaves. So I just love this plant, and I'm very, very, very happy to have it in my collection. So that's my IKEA Fabricor cabinet, I'm sorry, Millsbo cabinet, with more Hoyas. Okay everyone, now after taking all that time to look around our house, I apologize, I probably delved into things a little more than I needed to. We're going to get into our plant tasks for the day, and we do have several of them. Like I said, we have a few Hoyas that I want to propagate. I have a Philodendron brantianum that we're going to mount to a grow trunk, which a lot of people haven't seen the process, so we're going to walk through that and generally just kind of discuss things as we go along. I still have my coffee. It's a little chilly by now, but it's still coffee and still has caffeine in it, so that's all that matters. So, pardon the motorcycle. But we're going to get into these plant tasks, and as we do, we're going to talk about the 5 green rules that I tend to break every single day almost. And we're going to start with my number 1 pet peeve this time of year is the green rule that says never repot your plants during the winter. Why? They're plants, as long as you're keeping them in your home in a warmer environment with good humidity, they don't care. They'll grow no matter what, and repotting them is not going to make a bit of difference to the plants. And I try to tell the people this all the time. I repot my plants 365 days a year because I know that it's not going to affect them. I've never had a plant die because I repotted it, but I hear it all the time and I see it all the time, and I have people tell me all the time that you do not repot your plants during the winter. Well, sorry folks, but I do. And if you have a reason for not repotting your plants in the winter, please let me know down below, because I still, to this day, after 2 winters, do not believe in that rule at all. I will repot my plants whenever they need to be repotted. I'm not going to wait till spring. It's hard enough with the 150, 200 plants that I have to be constantly repotting them. I'm not going to pile them in to a time period, even if it's a few months, and try to get them all done at the same time. It just doesn't work for me. So whenever my plants are ready to go, no matter what time of year it is, winter, spring, fall, winter, whatever season it is, my plants are going to get repotted when they need repotted, not on a schedule. So that's my first green rule, and we'll discuss a little bit more as we go along. But once again, we're going to talk about several things that I need to get accomplished today, and I think the first one we're going to do is a repot, because it's February. Tomorrow is supposed to be, I think, freezing. It's supposed to snow, but we're going to repot it anyways, because you know what? It needs repotted, and it doesn't care what time of year it is. In the Gathering Moss household, it's always summer because it's 70, 75 degrees in here. We keep humidifiers running most of the time, and so the humidity stays 55, 60% max inside the house. higher in the grow tents and the cabinets, but for the most part, they live a pretty good and tropical life, and I've never seen any kind of an issue from repotting. I do it constantly, especially with growing Hoyas, trying to get them into our shop for sale, because that's one of our means of livelihood. We grow plants. We've grown to love plants, and we love to share plants. So in order to do that, we have to propagate them, and we have to be able to repot them and do what we want with them any time of the year. So I have this little Hoya Sunrise. One of my favorite plants for sun stressing Hoya, because they just can get a really brilliant color, red. We're going to repot this thing because I don't know if you can tell or not, but there's roots everywhere on this plant and in this pot, and it's just time for a repot. And no matter that it's the middle of February and tomorrow's supposed to be freezing cold, although today it's probably pushing 60. My watch actually says it's, well, it doesn't tell me what the temperature is, but it's pretty warm outside. But tomorrow it's supposed to be freezing and snow. So, but this plant doesn't care. It's going to stay inside. It's not going out in the snow. So it's going to get a repot. So first rule I tend to break or bend is I repot whenever I feel like it. Okay, so let's get started here. I've got all the things here that I need to repot this Hoya Sunrise, and once again, just one of my favorite little Hoyas. It grows really well. We've got several of these propagating. I'm trying to grow them out a little bit more so that we can sell them in our store. Just a really great little Hoya, and it's just grown like crazy, so we're going to work on getting this one out of the pot. I tend to go, I wanted to go a little bit bigger on this one. This is I think a 12 centimeter for 3.5, 4 inch pot. I tend to believe what I heard in a video. I did see the same video that Miro has talked about with Summer Rain Oaks when she visited Torvald Nyhouse. I think that's how you say her name. And she was a great collector of Hoyas in, I believe, Sweden. And her collection was just amazing. And she had talked about she never really went with a much bigger than this pot for any of her Hoyas, because they do, if you grow Hoyas, you know that even the bigger plants, they don't grow huge root systems. They have really nice roots. If you can tell on this one has really nice roots. There's roots all through here, and they're nice and green, and they're constantly growing. As I take a drink of coffee. But it's a plant that just keeps growing, and I want to get it in a bigger pot so that it can expand even more. And the idea would be someday to put a couple of these together so you have a couple of vines growing for the customer that's buying the actual plant. So I hope you can see this. This is a new experience for me doing this on camera, but I just tend to put a little bit of soil down at the bottom of the pot, and then pull the plant out of the old pot and stick it in the center, and then just fill in with soil around it. And this, I forgot to mention, is our fill dirt, gathering moss fill dirt that we sell in our store. I can't tell you how many times I regret the name that I chose for this. It was just a kind of a pun at the time, because if you know anything about dirt, there is fill dirt, F-I-L-L, that is used to bring in to fill in when your dirt is lacking. You know, if you're in construction or something, you may have an area that needs just a little bit more dirt in it, so you bring in fill dirt. So I decided to name it Fill, P-H-I-L, dirt. Just kind of a play on words, and every time I see it now, I wish it was named something else. But it is what it is, and I don't want to change it now, because you like to have consistency when you're selling product. But it was one of the reasons that I came up with our second soil mix, and that was a bit more chunky, and we called that one our Chunky Max Mix. And that one's named after our cat. We have a cat that's absolutely huge, probably 25 pounds almost, and we call him, and his name is Max. And so our latest soil blend is called Chunky Max Mix. And it's selling really well, and I keep hoping it sells so much that I don't have to make fill dirt anymore, but you know, it is what it is. So we sell a lot of both. They're both based in tree fern fiber, which I think is one of the best growing mediums that you can put Hoyas in, because they just tend to grow like crazy. Their root systems just expand so quickly in tree fern fiber. We mix some other things in that I think helps along that way. Pumice, perlite, orchid bark, and a fluval, not fluval stratum. We use a stratum of volcanic soil product that it holds its shape better, and it doesn't break down like fluval stratum does. So it's a more long-term solution inside our soil mediums. But either one of them, if you decide to try one of them out, and I recommend that you do, because they're both awesome at growing plants in, no matter what genre you like, whether you like anthuriums, philodendrons, ficus, aglaonemas, Hoyas. They all have just grown so well in our soil mixes, and I put it down to the tree fern fiber. And once again, this is what I brought up at the beginning. I decided in my plant journey I was never going to do what others did, and right now the big trend seems to be coco coir, which I've tried, and it works, but I don't find it has any advantages for the plants. They grow in it, but it's more that they're growing because of it, or they're growing in spite of it, not because of it. I think if you add the right fertilizer and the right, if you're using rainwater or whatever, I think that helps along the way, but there's nothing inside the coco coir that really adds or benefits the plants. Whereas I believe with tree fern fiber, there is something in the tree fern fiber that actually helps roots develop. I have no scientific fact for that. I just know in my own plants that's more than fact. I've seen it over and over again, and gosh, I've got to knock on wood here, because I've never experienced root rot with one of my plants, and I put that down again to the soil mix and the soil medium that I put them in, and a big part of that is tree fern fiber. So that's my pitch for our plant mixes. I won't keep hitting you with pitches, but I really say, if you have the opportunity to give one of them a try, and I think you'll be impressed just with the tree fern fiber aspect of the mix. And we have it right here. One of the other nice things about tree fern fiber is that it does not clump. So you can see I can do whatever I want to with it, but it's just going to fall apart no matter what. Once again, that's the repot of this guy. Like I said, I put them in the middle and then fill in around them. I tend to fill closer to the top than probably most people do, just because I know the plants and the medium settle, and I know at some point it's going to get down lower inside the pot. But once again, just fill it up. I don't tend to push it down too much, but just a little bit, and just make sure that whatever plant it is, in this case a Hoya, is nice and firm inside the pot. But this is, once again, Hoya Sunrise, and she's ready to grow out into this 4-inch pot. Okay, I think I've got us all set up to do this next task. And what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to propagate this Hoya linearis. And as you can tell, I've got some really nice, long, beautiful cuttings here. They're actually rooted. But I want to make several plants out of this. I mean, I've got all this material, and I just want to get it growing on its own in my own soil mixes. So once again, I have just a couple cups here, but this is going to go in probably 6, 8, 10 cups eventually. But this is the soil medium that I want it to grow into, and it's fill dirt. And what we're going to do is we're going to start chopping these guys up and getting them in the cups. And I'll just show you my method for doing it. This is my method for propagating Hoyas. Once again, it's my method. You may have a different method, and I hope if you have something different that you do, you'll put it in the comments down below. I would love to hear everyone's ideas on how they grow Hoyas and how they propagate Hoyas. I've found this method to be very successful for me, but that doesn't mean it's for everybody. It's just like the rules that we're talking about, the green rules that we're talking about. They're the rules that I break. That doesn't mean you have to break them. You can do your plant journey however you feel like. But if you can, make a comment down below and let us know what you think or how you propagate Hoyas, or the rules that you tend to stick to on your journey, and we'll just have some nice conversations down in the comments down below. I'll respond as I can, and we'll all learn together. So this is how I propagate Hoyas, and the linearis is a little bit different in that it's a very, very delicate plant. Its leaves are small, its stem is small. It tends to like to jump out of the pot at any given opportunity. So in this case, with this size of a plant, I'm going to do maybe 4 or 5 nodes. And the nodes on linearis are also really small. If you can tell here, here's a leaf with a node, here's a node, here's a node. But on this one, what I tend to do when I'm cutting my Hoyas for propagation is I go just an 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch above the node that I want to keep on the plant, and I just cut right there. So in this case, I'm going to cut right above that node, and I get a cutting just like this. Sorry, I'm not in the camera, but here we go. If you can see that, and I've cut just above that node. And so then I've got enough stem to the next node where you're going to get root formation out of the node area, in my opinion, in my experience. So we're going to look for roots to grow here. In this case, since this is bare vine anyways, I'm going to bury completely down to this node also, so that it has plenty of room for roots to grow. Now with Hoya, they can grow roots almost anywhere on this stem. So I may get roots all along the stem, but I know that I'm going to get roots around the nodes. So I tend to bury at least one node. Let's say I cut up here, I would bury this leaf. I wouldn't bury the leaf, but I would get the leaf as close to the soil as I can, because if you can see, there are actually aerial roots already forming around this node. So if it's going to form aerial roots, they can become regular soil roots as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get this as gently as possible down in the soil. Once again, like I said, Hoya linearis tends to like to jump back out of the soil, so we're just going to work it down there in there as best we can, burying in at least one node. And I think that's all I'm going to get in there, because I don't want to put it in there too deep. We're just going to cover up as much as we can to give it some stability, and then we end up with this. And then I'm just going to do the same thing again to get another cutting. I usually try to go off, work my way down one node at a time, but I think I've lost the node that I was working on. So we're just going to grab another one right here. And this part up here at the beginning of the stem really hasn't grown leaves yet, but it's okay to leave that on. It may still develop the leaves. I found that with Hoyas, at least in my experience, if they grow roots fast enough, you won't lose the baby leaves. They'll just start growing once the roots form down here. And usually in tree fern fiber and using our growth technology foliage focus and root zone, I can get roots within 7 to 10 days and new leaf development within 2 weeks. So in that short amount of time, you lose a lot of leaves. So once again, if you can see, I'm going to cut just above this leaf set, leaving just a little bit of stem just above the node that I'm leaving behind. And then I get a nice healthy cutting of Hoya linearis. And I'm just going to bury that in here. I've given enough stem where it's got room to grow roots. And I'm going to bury this one right under the leaf set that's left on here. So I'm just going to stick my finger down there and kind of make it a path and get that down in there, just so that the leaf, that set of leaves sits right on top of the tree fern fiber. And this, once again, they like to jump out, so I got to get it really deeply down in there. And there we go. And what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to add a little bit more soil. Got some over here to this pot. And I'm just going to make sure that my plants just sit right, my leaves, my last set of leaves, sit just above that tree fern fiber. And actually, I wish you could see, because the aerial roots that we're forming for that leaf set are just inside the fill dirt, keeping the leaves outside so that they don't have any issues. So there's 2 nice cuttings in there, and I think with this one I may put 3 in there. So I usually only put 2, but I think that'll look nice with 3 in there. I'm not going to cut this one quite as long. But once again, right above, just a little bit of a gap, 1/8 of an inch above the leaves that I'm leaving on the stem. And then I'm just going to gently work this down into the soil until those leaves are sitting right on top of the soil, just like that. So 3 nice cuttings in there. You can mark the date. Today is Friday, February 23rd, and we'll come back in a couple weeks. I'll bring these back on air when we do our next video, and we'll take a look and see if roots have formed. So that's Hoya linearis and how I propagate these in the soil that they're going to grow in. Not water, not sphagnum moss, not perlite, the soil that they're going to grow in long term. So that's green rule number 2, that I break all the time. I only propagate in the soil mix that they're going to grow into. And that's with every plant. Any plant that I do propagation with, or I grow seeds in, or I grow tissue culture in, I always grow it in the soil medium that it's going to grow into long term. So that's my rule. Let's see what you guys say in the comments below. I'll take good and bad, so I'm used to it. I've had a lot of people tell me I'm wrong, but they just keep growing, so that's all that matters to me. So that's the next rule that I break, and the next one we're going to talk about is fertilizing our plants and the schedule that you keep with fertilizing. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're getting ready to move on, but I forgot to bring up one thing, and I had talked about it a little bit, but then I never pointed it out. What I propagate Hoya in mostly are these little Dixie cups. They're not clear, but they're a little bit translucent. You can see through them. If roots get up against the outside of the container, then I can see that. But they're not completely clear, so I don't get as much algae growth as I do with clear cups. But once again, it's filled with fill dirt, and what I do once I get the plant in there is I fill it up with if you can see this, it's almost completely full. It's about 3/4 full of water. So that helps encourage the plant's roots to grow. Once again, I stole it from Hakuna La Planta. He does that, I believe. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was in one of his videos. At least that's what stuck in my head, and it's been highly successful for me. He's a great grower of plants, so I always try to steal from the best. Just like Sydney Plant Guy, I stole quite a few of his things with the foliage focus and the grow trunks moss poles. So anyways, but that's how I do it. I keep it as moist as possible until I see roots. Once I do the tug test and there's roots there, then I'll cut back on the water and let them grow naturally. But this just encourages the beginnings of root growth. So that's on the Hoya linearis. While we talk about the next green rule that I break, I'm going to work on cutting one of my favorite plants, and it's a little sad for me to cut it, but this is Hoya griffithii from China. One of the prettiest plants that I own. It's not a really stiff leaf Hoya, but they're just kind of an in-between Hoya. It's not soft leaf, but it's not really overly rigid. Just a beautiful leaf. It's got beautiful variegation. Growing on one of my pathetic attempts at trellising, but it's absolutely loved it. But it's time for a chop because I want to start growing more than one of these things at a time. So this is, once again, is Hoya griffithii, and we're going to get it off this trellis and work on chopping and propping. So I had this on, I'd seen another person do this. I used the bread ties from loaves of bread. I cut those down and used those as kind of plant clips to hold it to the trellis. With the thin leaves, it's hard to find orchid clips that are small enough for the thin stemmed Hoyas. So this was another option, and it did hold it to it, and it really grew well on it. So there's actually another one working its way up there, another stem. So, but we're going to take this one off. If I can get this, it's kind of wrapped itself around the plant clip. And this one, these plant clips were a little bit nicer. They actually had a little piece in the middle that kept them apart that you're able to break off, and then they hold together a lot closer than your normal plant clip. So anyways, I hope you're able to see everything clearly enough. Here she is. She's big and she's pretty, but I want more than one, so we're gonna have to chop her up. So, and you can tell there's several areas of potential chopping here. This has actually grown a couple of stems at the top here. So if you can see right here, there's two separate stems here. This one looks to be a little newer, and then you have this one over here. The thing with Hoya is if you let the tips grow downwards, they tend to die. And this one may have been getting close to that, but both of them seem healthy at the moment. But if I just, if I wanted to, and I may do this right now, I can chop this here and take this piece off. I'll only get one cutting from it, but then this part here is already growing, so I'm letting the plant continue to grow onwards. If I cut further down, then I'm gonna have to take both of these pieces off, and that's not a bad thing either, because they would both grow. So thinking, what do I want to do? I think we may just take them both and then just let them both grow out, and then the plant can regrow itself. It actually has another, I don't know if you can see, but there's another stem over here growing too. So we're going to take this all the way back, and then we'll just cut it up. So Take a deep breath and chop. And you know, with Hoyas, they tend to bleed, but it's not like a pink princess where it bleeds red and you think you've just killed something. But they do shoot out a latex when you cut them. I don't know if that's a healing mechanism or what exactly that is, but they all tend to do it. Some of it's clear, most of it I found is white. And then so we've got our nice cutting here. Hopefully, again, you can see it. I'm not sure where I'm holding stuff sometimes, but we have a nice cutting. And so we're gonna go ahead and just, once again, cut right above that node. Just a little bit, so I leave a little bit of stem above the node. And we get a nice cutting like this. And you see how I cut it just above the node? And you can see the latex that's coming out there. It's left quite a bit of stem down here, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut a little bit of that off. And what I like to do is cut it on an angle. Don't ask me why, but it seems to work okay. And if nothing else, it helps me to push it down in the soil, so I get it down there really well in the soil. This one's interesting because it was actually growing. It's actually growing another branch out here. So this thing was branching like crazy. We'll see how that does. It's a little small. It may die off, but you know, hopefully we get it. We get it growing roots quickly enough, and that will survive. So once again, we've got a nice cutting right here, and these are a little bit more stiff. The stem is, so I can just push that down in the soil gently but firmly, and just get that down once again, just so the leaves are sitting on top of the tree fern fiber, or in this case, fill dirt. If you can see here, see how that's just sitting right above the soil line. I found that's really good for the plant. It really gives them a good opportunity to grow roots. There's plenty of stem down there that the roots can grow out of with Hoya. So we have one cutting there. I tend to do 2 cuttings per little. I guess these are 2.5, 3 inches. And I know this stem is really long, so I'm going to cut a portion of it off once I get at an angle. No idea why, other than it's nice to push the plants down in with. And once again, just above that node. So this is, once again, how our cutting is going to look. Just right above the node. And a nice good piece of stem where the roots can develop. And I'm just going to take that and push it down in the soil. Work it down in there until it sits right on top of that soil mix. And this one was actually forming another stem as well. So really great growing plant. So we like that. And once again, I'm going to use my fertilizer water, and I'm going to fill it up about 3/4 of the way. And using this fertilizer water brings us to the next subject, the next green rule that I break. Green rule number 3 is that I fertilize my plants with every watering. I do not do monthly schedule, and I do not do it less during the winter. Every single watering, I am fertilizing my plants. And I took to heart another Summer Rain Oaks video where she was at Longwood Gardens. It was more of an affirmation because I've really been doing it since the beginning. But it was an affirmation for me, and I loved the saying. The chief person there was doing the tour, and he said, fertilize your plants weekly, but weekly. So weekly, W-E-E-K-L-Y, but weekly, W-E-A-K-L-E-Y, L-Y, not L-E-Y. But so you're I use a solution that's less than the manufacturer's recommendation, but I have fertilizer in my water constantly. Every single watering, they're getting some fertilizer in that water. And I believe that's a good way to get good, healthy plants. They need fed as much as we can feed them. Just like in the wild, they're constantly feeding. They're not waiting a month between feedings. I believe that I get better growth, greener plants by feeding them every single watering. So once again, this is green rule number 3. I do not fertilize once a month, and unless in wintertime, I fertilize every single watering. And once again, I go by the saying, fertilize weekly, but weekly. So, and once again, in saying that, when I say the weekly part, I water right around weekly, and I use the weight method to know when to water my plants. I know how much my plants weigh in the pot. If they feel light, I'm watering. If they feel heavy, they'll wait a few more days. So that's my method of watering. I use the weight method, and I water weekly, and I fertilize weekly. W-E-A-K-L-Y, weekly. Man. But that's green rule number 3 that I break. And that's one that I totally believe in. I believe that the plants need fed more than once a month, and even less during the winter time. They continue to grow if you're keeping them in a warm, sort of humid environment. They don't have a clue that it's winter outside. There's nothing that's telling them it's winter. So why do we treat them different in the winter? So once again, if you disagree, comment down below and let us know, and we'll have a discussion. So let's move on to the next rule, and that is that rule number 4, water on a schedule. Your plants need a routine. And I call bull on that one. My plants do not care when I water them, they just want watered. And I go, once again, by the weight method, and I water when they're ready to be watered. I'm not going to sit around and say, hey, it's day 6, you're not getting water till tomorrow. If they're dry that day, I'm watering. So once again, rule number 4, water on a schedule. Your plants need a routine. I totally do not agree with that one. I water when my plants need the water, and that's by getting in and feeling the pots. And if they're lightweight, it's time to water. So that's green rule number 4. So that's another one that I just do not believe in, and I go by my own rules. Okay, first off, I want to apologize. I know this is kind of a long video, but I had some tasks I wanted to get done, and I was wanting to get a video done. So hopefully you'll indulge me and watch to the end. This is something that a lot of people have requested. They want to know how to mount a plant to one of our grow trunks. It would be the same process if you just had a moss pole. They make some really great moss poles that are made out of plastic. We tend to like our grow trunks just because they're handmade, they're really durable, they're really sturdy and strong, and they really work really well at holding the plants up long term. You've seen some of ours around the house. We've found no plant yet that can destroy one. So, and if that giganteum with all its roots growing into that grow trunk haven't destroyed it yet, you can pretty much guarantee that nothing's going to destroy it. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this philodendron brantianum to this grow trunk. We're going to show you how to put it into the pot, set it all up, put the soil in, and just make a very sturdy support system for your plants to grow up. Brandies really appreciate grow trunk. They have really great aerial roots that'll grow into here and really pick up the moisture that you put in your grow trunk and use that to help develop larger leaves. So once again, this is one of our grow trunks. This is the 24-inch regular model, 3 inches wide, 24 inches long. We're going to bury it into the soil so that it's nice and sturdy and a good support system for the plant. So let's get at it here. Once again, we've got our plant here, we've got our grow trunk, we've got our pot that we're going to put it in, and what's going to happen is we're going to mount the brandy to the grow trunk in a position where we want it to sit. We're going to pin it to it. We're going to set the plant in there. We're going to fill in the soil around the plant's roots and the grow trunk so that it's a good sturdy support system. We bury the grow trunk all the way to the bottom of the pot and then fill the soil around it so that it's got a nice base to sit on. It's not sitting on top of the soil, wobbling all over the place. With it down firmly in there, it's going to give it a nice solid system for the plant to grow onto. So that's where we're going with this. This is our beginnings. So let's just get at it and get this plant out of here and get it in its new living environment. And while we're at it, we'll talk about the last rule number 5, the green rule that I tend to break. And that's the one that's probably going to get the most comments down below. I never, ever, and I never will take my plants outside during the summer. And let me tell you the reason why. And this is probably a terrible reason because I know that they probably would do well outside. But I am I have a phobia about bugs. I haven't had a major outbreak, and once again, I need to knock on wood. A major infestation in my plant collection, and I hope I never do. And I'm not going to tempt fate by taking my plants outside. I've had people tell me over and over how wrong this is, how much better my plants would do if they went outside during the summer. But no matter how much they may do better in the summer, I ain't testing fate. So I never ever take my plants outside during the summer, and I never ever will. And it would take an absolute miracle for somebody to talk me into actually taking plants outside. Now I will say that I have had a couple of occasions where I took the gigantium outside during a rainstorm just to wash it off and let it feel the rain on its leaves. But it's a very rare occasion if I ever do. I use beneficial insects to help prevent any kind of outbreaks. And once again, it's just one of those things where I am not going to test fate and take my plants outside and maybe get them infested with something and then bring them back inside and have 150, 200 plants at least all having issues with major infestations. So you can leave your comments down below about why you take your plants outside during the summer, but believe me, it's one that you're probably not going to talk me into. Some of the other ones I could probably be tempted to try, but I just don't see me testing fate with my plants outside during the summer. So that's rule number 5. We've gotten through all the rules that I tend to break, and I hope you'll leave some comments below about the rules that you either break or you keep religiously. So let me have it down below, folks. Let me have it. Tell me where I'm wrong. Okay, so we've got our brandy out of the pot that it was in, and what we're going to do is we're going to position it on the grow trunk where we want it to grow, and it's tended to grow kind of weird. I let it go too long, but I think if we put it, hopefully you can see, I want to keep the roots out of the soil, or the stem out of the soil as much as possible, and the leaves. So our pot is going to sit just above or just below the sphagnum moss line here. So I think if we position it kind of like that, we can manipulate the brandy as it grows to form it more to the grow trunk as it grows up. So this is kind of where I'm going to put it. And what I do at this point is I want to keep it in position. So somewhere here I've got some plant pins. And I'm just going to pin the plant to the sphagnum moss and the grow trunk to hold it in place while I get the rest of the grow trunk set up. So we'll just do that in a couple places here. Just kind of like that. Now you see, she's kind of mounted, just like I want it to sit. If we put the pot here, you can see the stem and the roots that were already formed are just below the pot line. So a good position for the plant to be in. And then the next thing we have to do is fill in the pot with soil. And what I start out doing is, and I'll use the soil that it was already using, is I fill in the bottom of the grow trunk where it's empty because I don't like to have sphagnum moss down inside the pot. So I'm just going to fill up that cavity and I'm just going to stuff it full. Just keep stuffing it in there until you get it nice and full underneath inside the grow trunk. Just keep stuffing it in there. Almost done there. So it should be nice and full. Okay, so see, once again, we've filled up the grow trunk with soil, where the soil will actually be on the roots inside the pot, so that we don't have sphagnum moss down inside the pot. If we sit in there, you can see there's soil up to about the line of where soil will be inside the pot. So now we've taken the grow trunk, we've mounted our plant to the grow trunk, we filled up the bottom of the grow trunk with soil to give it, and it also gives it some weight, some stability down there with having that soil in there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to fill in the rest of the pot with our soil mix, which is fill dirt again. And once again, fill dirt's made with mostly tree fern fiber. It has some orchid bark, pumice, perlite, and then a product that I really highly recommend, and it's a little bit different than fluval stratum in that it's a lot denser product, so you don't get the breakdown that you do with fluval stratum. And I hope they don't mind us mentioning them in our video. It's not at all sponsored, but this is called Solemn Smart Soil, and it's by a company called Modern Aqua, and you can find them online. Once again, it's called Solemn Smart Soil, and we do add that. It works just exactly like fluval stratum does, which is really good. It's volcanic soil, but it's been compressed a lot more firmly with this product than with stratum. If you take stratum and stick it in your fingers, you can break it apart. With this, you will not break this apart, which is better long-term for your plants because it's going to stay in there and keep working for your plants. So I highly recommend, if you use fluval stratum, giving this a try. I think it'll last a lot longer for you, and it just seems to be a good quality product, and our plants really love it. It's a nice additive to our tree fern fiber as something else that helps promote root growth. I used fluval a lot for propagation in the past. I don't tend to do that anymore. I just, once again, you just use whatever soil they're going to grow into. But if I was going to do that, I would go back, I would use this instead, just because this is reusable over and over again, because I don't see this ever breaking down. It's just so compressed. And it's just a nice, once again, it adds, it's another thing for it is it adds aeration to your soil, just by the fact that you can't,
you can't break it down just because it's so compressed. So once again, we're just filling in with around the grow trunk and over the plant's roots, filling it in, making it nice and tight and firm without compressing it too much.
Okay everyone, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we appreciate each and every one of you stopping by and checking out our YouTube videos. We just can't tell you enough how much we appreciate it. Hope you found something useful today, maybe something you disagree with. Leave a comment down below. Let us know about that. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and be sure to subscribe so that you get notifications the next time we put one out. I do have another video in mind and ready to record that, so I'm going to get that ready and get it out as quickly as I can. So check back in. It should be a fun one, and I definitely believe it won't be as long as this one because, man, this one wore me out. So everybody, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.